In the next section, I will talk about the setup of Extended Insight in your SAP environment. First, you need to check if your system meets the prerequisites. Then you need to find out how the CLI driver is set up in your SAP environment and can install and configure the Extended Insight software. Finally, you can validate your setup. To use the Extended Insight feature of InfoSphere Optim Performance Manager, the SAP system has to run with SAP kernel 7.0.0 or later. Furthermore, the DB2 runtime client or DB2 CLI driver with which the SAP system is connecting to the DB2 database has to be at level DB2 version 9.7, Fixpack 2 or later. To embed the Extended Insight client software and take advantage of the copy mechanism, at least level DB2 version 9.7 Fixpack 3 is needed. Moreover, the SAP system has to know that it should look for the configuration file called db2dsdriver CFG in the global directory, to be specific in dir_global/db6. This is guaranteed if your SAP system is running with an SAP kernel 7.0 or later. To validate this, you could also check if your SAP kernel contains the SAP node 1414616. Please also check that the configuration file db2dsdriver CFG file is really available in the directory dir_global/db6. If not, you can create a new one from a sample. When you want to set up Extended Insight, the central question is where the CLI driver of your SAP system is located. You can easily check this by logging on as subsit ADM user and execute the command r3trans-x. r3trans loads the DB2 library and connects to the database. A log file called trans.log is created in the current directory. Please open the trans.log file and search for the term DB2 library. If it refers to some SQL lib directory, then it is using the so-called old client connectivity. That means that the CLI driver is loaded from a DB2 runtime client installation. If you see that the DB2 libraries are loaded from the global directory, then you know that the new client connectivity is used. You may also hear the term thin client for the new client connectivity. Here you can see the differences between old and new client connectivity. In an SAP system using old client connectivity, a DB2 runtime client is used to connect to the DB2 database. The CLI driver is located in the subdirectory samples/CLI below the SQL lib directory. In this case, the db2dsdriver CFG file from the subdirectory called CFG below the SQL lib directory will be used. For old client connectivity, the central share and each dialog instance will have their own DB2 runtime client installed. But if your SAP system runs with new client connectivity, certain information is located in a globally shared NFS. There are 3 directories which are mounted on each dialog instance under the following paths: /submnt/subsit/global /submnt/subsit/exe /submnt/subsit/profile. The CLI driver will be also located in the global directory in the subdirectory db6/platform/db6_CLI driver. The platform part in the path is depending on the platform your system is running on. For example, for AIX, the part is AIX_64. The two important configuration files, DB2 CLI ini and DB2 DS driver CFG, are also located in the directory DB6 below the global directory. This presentation will focus on the new client connectivity, as this is the common SAP setup. The next slide illustrates the new client connectivity and especially the copy mechanism. Here you can see the SAP system ERP. It has one central instance and two dialog instances. Whereas the global directory is on the central instance, this directory is mounted for the dialog instances so that they also have access to this data. In addition, each instance has a local directory with executables. When the SAP system is started, the CLI driver is copied from the global directory to the local executable directories. Like this, each instance has the latest version of the CLI driver in its local directory. The idea behind is to have a smooth upgrade of the CLI driver. If you want to update the CLI driver, you will do this only once in the global directory, and afterwards you can restart one dialog instance after the other. The dialog instances are typically connecting against the database. Like this, you don't need a downtime for the whole SAP system to upgrade the CLI driver. Here you can see how Extended Insight fits into the new client connectivity. If you install the Extended Insight client software also in the global directory and adapt the copy mechanism, it will also copy the Extended Insight client software to each local executable directory. To install and configure Extended Insight with the new client connectivity, you need to follow these steps. After starting the installation, you need to specify the following path as installation directory: dir global/db6/platform/IBM_data_tools. Afterwards, you need to run the configuration as described in step 3. After finishing the configuration step, you need to update the DB2 DS driver CFG file and update the path to the PQCMX library. Doing so, you need to update the value of the parameter called Connection Supervisor library. It needs to be a relative path, as during the copy step, the Extended Insight client software is copied to the local executable directories, which have a unique name for each instance. Then you also have to update the CLI driver.lst file in the dir global/db6/platform directory and add one more line with the directory into which you installed the Extended Insight client software. In this example, it is IBM_data_tools. Finally, you have to restart the SAP instances so that the changes made to the DB2 DS driver CFG file are picked up. With the DB2 CLI validate command, you can check if the communication from your SAP system to the InfoSphere Optim Performance Manager is working. You might need to set the environment variables as specified, as they are not set in the environment of the subset ADM user. In addition, you need to update the DB2 DS driver CFG file with an absolute path to the PQCMX library. This is only needed temporarily for running the DB2 CLI validate command. Afterwards, you should set this path to the PQCMX library, or better to say, the value for the parameter connection supervisor library in the DB2 DS driver CFG file back to the relative path. In the output of this command, you should find certain messages that the PQCMX successfully connected to the controller server and that the PQCMX data source connected successfully to the monitor server. If this is not working, please check the troubleshooting section of the Developer Works article, for which you find the link at the end of the presentation. If you have a central share in your SAP environment, which is available to each application server instance, the central instance and all dialog instances, you can also install the Extended Insight client software on this share. Like this, the copy mechanism is not needed. Furthermore, you can use the centrally available Extended Insight client software for all SAP systems. Here you find the steps for the installation of the Extended Insight client software on a central share. After starting the installation, you specify the directory on your central share. Then you process with the configuration. Finally, you need to restart the SAP application servers to pick up the changes in the DB2 DS driver CFG file. If you have several SAP systems for which you want to configure the Extended Insight client software, you could run the configuration step only once and then copy the DB2 DS driver CFG file to the global directory of the other systems. Please be careful with this and make sure that you don't overwrite information in the DB2 DS driver CFG file which might be needed. Usually, SAP systems only use the DB2 DS driver CFG file if your DB2 database is set up as a DB2 PureScale system. Opening the Extended Insight dashboard, you see different views on the data. For SAP systems, InfoSphere Optim Performance Manager offers 3 predefined workload groups: SAP Application Server, SAP Users, and SAP Transactions, which you can activate. I recommend that you create in addition a 4th workload group for the SAP source modules, which will group the workload by the SAP source module. In the next section, I will give you more insight how you can use the InfoSphere Optim Performance Manager in your SAP environment. I will do this by showing 2 use cases. Use case number A: imagine a user complains that the job is running long and would like to know why. And use case B: probably the SAP application developers in your company write own reports in the Z namespace. Before transporting them to the SAP production system, they would like to check the performance of the customized reports. How should they do this? Let's start with use case A. A user complains that his job is running long and would like to know why. You can investigate this issue by checking the Extended Insight dashboard of InfoSphere Optim Performance Manager. There you will see where the transactions spend their time across the infrastructure. With Extended Insight, you can go beyond the database view. You can check how much time was spent in the database layer, but also in the network and on the client side, in this case in the SAP application layer. As you can see in the screenshot, you have different views on the workload executed against the database during the time frame selected. Let's check the workload cluster for the users. Some of them have violated the critical threshold as the red icon is shown. As we can see here, Karl and Thorsten are running long transactions. Let's check the details in the charts. Karl is regularly hitting the critical threshold. There are some outliers which are running very long. Nearly 12% of the workload is in the 7-minute bin. Let's check once again in the table in the Extended Insight Overview dashboard. Putting the mouse on the bar chart in the response time alert column, we see in the flyover how many transactions hit the threshold. 15% of the transactions are hitting the critical threshold. The average response time is 1 minute and 11 seconds, but the outliers run longer than 30 minutes, as we can see in the column Maximum End-to-End Response Time. In the 3 columns Average Data Server Time, Average Network Time and Average Client Time, we see where most of the data was spent. Most of the time is spent in the data server and only a little bit in the network and on the client side. Let's drill down into the workload of Carl. On the top left we see a chart showing where the time was spent, and in the lower part we see the pie chart. This one also shows that most of the time is spent in the data server. In the upper right part we see the most expansive SQL statements. Let's have a look at the details of these SQL statements. Here I can see all details for the query. Interesting. A lot of time was spent for waiting and all of the wait time in the I/O area. There are over 700,000 rows read per returned row. I probably need to create an index for this query. Now let's continue with use case B. Most probably also in your company the SAP application developers are writing customized reports. Wouldn't it be great if they have a tool to check the performance of their reports? First, I'll create a workload group which clusters the workload by users and filters for source modules starting with Z. All customized reports are in the Z namespace and start therefore with the letter Z. After creating the workload group, the view shown in the second screenshot is available. User Andrea is running her customized report ZA_account_history and is hitting the thresholds. Let's double click on the ZA_account_history report executed by Andrea and look at the details. Here I can see the details on the time spent and the queries executed in this report. Now I can do further investigations on this dashboard. We are now at the end of this presentation. I would like to thank you for your attention, and if you have further questions, just have a look at the article about InfoSphere Optim Performance Manager and SAP at the developer works, or get in touch with your IPM contacts. Thank you.